On slow nights, the corner keg sounds like the inside of a seashell. Wind tunneling I-80, gravel popping under stray headlights, neon buzzing like a tired fly. I was behind the bar counting tips by feel when the bathroom vent did its pocket of nickels rattle. Harris always said he'd fix it. Harris said a lot of things. He'd hired me 10 years back. Didn't talk wages, didn't talk hours. Just slid a folded paper across plank wood, the creases sweat dark like a used tea bag. 5 lines in faded blue. Not suggestions, he said, tapping the top line with a nicotine finger. They're how you make it to Thanksgiving. I laughed the way 20-somethings laugh when men who have survived try to hand them a map. Harris didn't laugh back. We serve honest beer, long necks sweating on rubber mats, a spare bottle of well whiskey with a poor spout that sticks unless you rinse it hot. The floor lists toward the kitchen. You learn to set pints a hair off-center so they don't skate. The mirror behind the bar is original or close, silver foxed at the corners, black bloom where someone went at it with Windex in '96 and made the damage permanent. Regulars have carved grooves in the vinyl with simple persistence. Fridays can fill every stool. Thursdays, you learn to respect clocks. Rule 1 lives in the wood. No one sits the corner booth after 10:00 p.m. on Thursdays. Ever, daylight doesn't show you why. In daylight, the booth is just tired red vinyl gone peony pink at the seams, lacquer crazed into hairlines, a sun-faded postcard of the Tetons that's lost a mountain. Pipeline crews eat burgers there at 2. A bass player restrings there at 4. Ranch couples split a Cobb salad there at 6 because she said she's eating better this year and he wants to keep being married. It's a booth. Until it isn't. The storm had been marching at us since sunset. Red desert sky stacked gray on gray, that taste of dust and battery on your tongue. The jukebox, possessed of its own rural theology, decided on a George Strait streak without asking anyone. A game played silently on a TV because no one liked either team but everybody liked the noise. We were busy enough. 3 rig hands off the late shift, a nurse from Memorial in Crocs, father and son whose conversation never stood up straight, 2 grad kids from Laramie wearing borrowed Carhartts and looking at our dear heads like they might apologize to them. At 9:41, I wiped the corner booth twice, set the reserved sign Harris had made from masking tape and a napkin holder, no speech. Folks who know don't need one and tourists don't listen to lectures, just to tone. We keep the sign ugly on purpose. Fancy reads like a dare. 9:58, lightning stitched itself somewhere far and the beer signs flickered but held. The jukebox died mid-chorus and stayed dead. Breaker, Dev called from the back. I shook my head. 9:59, on Thursdays, the wall clock weeps forward, molasses uphill. 10:00. There's always someone who thinks the sign is a joke. Tonight it was one of the grad kids. Jawline like he'd learned it in a mirror, Wyoming cap too new to have salt lines. He grinned at his girl, his buddy, the idea of a story. Come on, he said, corner booth at the corner keg, first chair. Hey, I told him in the tone you use when there's a porcupine behind the shed. Thursday's tricky, that booth's out of service after 10. He looked at me like I told him gravity clocks out on Fridays. Because reasons. Because it is, I said. Window seats are open. The girl could read a room, she tugged his sleeve. Let's just, pride survives tugging. He laughed polite, not mean, then slid into the corner like he was laying down a trump only he could see. His friend followed and the girl came last, leaving a ribbon of space between her hip and the wall. I didn't argue. If you haul a man out of a river while he's insisting he can swim, he'll drown you both. You stay near enough to throw a rope when he asks. The rig hands didn't look. The nurse did at me, not them. Harris taught me that kind of looking. 10:01, the vent rattled like it had swallowed nickels. The wind found the seam in the front door, threaded itself along the brass rail, raised napkins a quarter-inch and set them back down. The father checked the latch on his boy's coat like wind could steal it. "Breaker." Dev called again, and the way it landed told me he was standing in a column of cold you can't explain to anybody not from here. "Leave it," I said. "We're fine." The girl rubbed her forearm where vinyl touched paneling. "Is the wall wet?" I saw it when the varnish went dull. Not water dull, candle blown out dull, like a mouth going closed. The grad boy grinned wider, the way you grin when you're almost spooked and hate admitting it. He drummed the tabletop. "Ghost bar," he said. "Awesome." "Don't," his girl said, not to him, not to me, to the air. "Some people know how to address rooms." He tapped again. The booth answered. A hollow sound traveled up from the wood, a coffin-board courtesy knock. His smile left like a small bird. I set a pitcher of water on their table, corner keg compromise, rivers of normal moving through the weird. "Hydrate," I said, like we were all adults. "Seriously," the kid said, his voice trying for even and landing near regret. "What is this?" He meant me, the booth. Thursday, asking for a way to fold a bad hand without standing up. I could have told him about courthouse heat in 26 baking nails soft as licorice, or Thursday night sentencings at exactly 10, after Judge Fleming finished pie. Instead, I said the sentence that matters once the minute passes. "You don't want to be there." His buddy laughed wrong. The nurse stood without making a show of it. The father rotated his boy's stool a quarter turn toward the exit. Wind laid a flat palm against the glass. Lightning stitched sideways. The jukebox returned for one clean bar and died petty. The paneling breathed. There's no better word. Warm exhale under my knuckles when I tested the grain. It fogged the faded tetons, lifted baby hairs along the girl's wrist. "Okay," the kid said, trying for casual, moving to scoot. The booth did not let him. Would should be dumb. Chair is a noun, but the vinyl sank half an inch. The table's rounded edge nudged his ribs like a crowded elevator that won't move until you make space. He pushed. It pushed back, polite, firm, older than both of us put together. "Stand," the girl said, already snaking her legs free. "Stand now." He tried. The booth gave an inch, then none. His face did the math and hated the sum. "Dev," I said, not loud. By the time I turned, Dev had the painter's tin of rock salt in hand. The lid flipped, and for a heartbeat the bar smelled like January on the Platte. Harris keeps the stuff in containers that understand work. I palmed a pinch like a quarter for a kid's ear trick. "Scoot." I told the girl, she did. I slapped the pinch against the table edge and it sounded like a match struck inside a church. Heat hummed under my palm, the warmth of a car hood 5 minutes after shutoff. The booth let go. The grad boy spilled out the way he'll never tell it at parties. He hauled his friend by the jacket and did not apologize. Thursday doesn't care about apologies. It cares about clocks. The girl took 2 steps backward and found the nurse's hand without looking. The nurse squeezed like triage. "Nobody sits there after 10, I said, because sometimes you speak the obvious so the air has something to agree with. The father had tears in his eyes he didn't understand. The boy spread his palm on the glass door like he was measuring exits for later. "Why?" the grad boy asked. And this time it wasn't curiosity or mockery. It was the ragged want you hear when a ditch fills too fast. So they can eat, I said before I could chew it down. Not my line, the woods. He said. The phone rang. Not the bar line, not the wall rotary. The office phone we don't connect because we don't pay for it. The ring was old metal, pure, too bright, nail struck true. Harris came out of the back with his jaw clenched to cracking. He didn't look at me or the booth. He lifted the office receiver without crossing the threshold and said, steady enough to ice a vein, All Souls, 5 minutes. He listened, nodded once. Not ours, he said, and set the handset down like it weighed a gallon. A truck in the lot blinked lights off on off, someone deciding whether to come in. Sand hissed against the door sweep, the desert chewing. Close the booth, Harris said. I set the masking tape reserved where it always goes. Foolish human thing. Signs are for people. Rules are partly for us. The grad kids paid cash and didn't count change. The nurse held the girl's hand until the color climbed back to her nail beds. The rig hands told a story about a compressor blowing in 09, the kind of loud you use to keep quieter louds from winning. We cleaned like always. Habits are how you tell yourself you're not newly afraid. I ran a towel over the booth and felt residual warmth, seat someone just left. Midnight, Storm shouldered over and went off to beat somebody else's tin roof. Dev pulled mats and ran hot water. You feel that? He asked. Yeah. What is it then? The reason we don't sell the corner booth after 10. He shot me a look, half insult, half prayer. Funny. Not trying. Harris came with the closing bucket, bleach strong. He studied the tabletop like men read weather. Scraped a thumbnail at a dark, thin shine I hadn't noticed. It didn't lift. Didn't smear. Bleach once, again it stayed. What is it? I asked, knowing. Fresh, he said, new. Under the fixed light the dark line showed right, not spill, burn. Along the rounded edge, rope tar dark, a curve sank into varnish, down, loop, back up. A noose drawn quick by a hot finger. The jukebox woke enough for one soft note and died. Harris set his palm on the wood like on a dog's head. Here, here. 5 long seconds. Then he wiped the booth again like chores do themselves if you behave like they will. He didn't look at me. Next Thursday, he said, we salt the seams under the legs before 10. What happens if we don't? Dev asked, trying to make it brave. Harris's mouth tried for a smile with a ruler. Then it keeps eating alone. In the mirror's foxed edge, the noose line doubled, like the reflection had been there first and we were the copy. There are 2 smells you can't bleach out of the keg: fried onion from the grill vent and wet limestone from the floorboards. After sundown, when the desert cools and wood exhales, that mineral breath comes up, a cave's throat clearing. Harris once said it was the mine coming through. I didn't laugh, not after Rule 2. Rule 2, if someone orders the prospector's special, check their teeth. If any are gold, refuse service and call Vaughn immediately. First time I read it, I pictured kitsch, cheap bourbon and a gold Schledger gag. Harris had no joke face left for that rule, only that hard look men get when they've already buried the lesson once. Tuesday afternoon, sky too wide, lot empty. 2 regulars playing cards in the back. Off-duty waitress nursing a Coors. Jukebox playing something only it asked for. That's when he came in. Tall, rail thin. Moves like floorboards are suspect. Denim jacket despite heat. Gray hair wild under a sweat-salted trucker cap. Nothing remarkable until the smile. Prospector's special, he said, voice banker soft. The rule lit up behind my eyes. Teeth. I needed the teeth. He leaned on oak. The keg's light lies, everything goes tobacco yellow and time bent, so I stalled. Been a while, I said. Let me check the recipe in back. Water while you wait. He nodded. I set ice water and a lemon wedge. When he drank deep, the wedge tipped his lip just right. Molar flash, gold. My hand slicked the napkin. Refuse service. Call Vaughn. I didn't know how to reach Vaughn. Before I could choose my next lie, the door sighed open. A stocky man in his 60s came in, face leathered by equal parts sun and wind, cold blue eyes taking range and distance. He saw the stranger. The stranger went still. Vaughn, the stranger said, losing the banker silk. Voice snapped to gravel. Miller. Vaughn answered, nod curt. Long way from home. Card stilled. My waitress left like smoke under a door. Just passing through, Miller said. Heard there's a new vein. Not yours, Vaughn told him. We had an agreement. Miller's hand drifted inside the denim. Something metallic winked like a threat told to itself. The room tightened. After a silence that lied about being short, Miller stood. Another time, he said, and left without looking back. Vaughn took the vacated stool, ordered a double, knocked half in one swallow, and finally let me be a person in the room. You did right, he said. I didn't do anything. You didn't pour, that counts. He used to work the Atlantic City mines before they closed in the 70s. Vaughn's mouth held a shape that wasn't quite pity. He's not looking for gold anymore. What then? Something more valuable, more dangerous. Vaughn's gaze fell to my hands like I might have brought it up with me from the cellar. See the teeth. Gold means they've crossed over. Crossed where? He wrote a number on a napkin. Next time, call me first, day or night. Weeks later, a hiker found Miller in a mine shaft 15 miles out, throat cut, teeth missing, including the gold molar. Coroner pegged him 2 years dead. I had poured him water a month earlier. I told Vaughn. He nodded once, like agreeing with weather. They look more like us the longer they dig, he said. He didn't clarify what they meant. Some answers are worse than the questions ache. The next night, the card player with a chewing tobacco laugh smiled, 4 teeth too bright. And for a split instant, I swore I saw glint. My hand, all by itself, touched the nearest salt shaker like it could remember before I did. Behind the bar, the floorboards gave a low creak, the kind you feel in your knees, the sound of old wood consenting to hold the weight again. Rule 3, never allow Tracy Lorraine to run a tab, cash only. Collect all glasses the second she's done. The first time I read it, I thought it was barkeeping. No credit for charmers, no glassware left on wood to grow rings. Turns out it's not bookkeeping. It's warding. April. Wind shouldered rain sideways across Sweetwater County, taking a run at every loose screw between here and Wamsutter. Half the grid was out. We worked by lantern and stubby candles jammed into salt shakers. Shadows leaned and lengthened with the flame. The door banged open, umbrella black as a burned-out farmhouse. Red hair bright in the dim. Not local, city shoes, rental keys, perfume not born of sage or hay, but not a tourist either. Tourists smile first, ask for menus. She scanned the room like hunting for a specific kind of shape. Hendricks and tonic, she said, crisp. Exact. No wasted syllables. She slid 100 across while I iced the glass. Open me a tab. Rule 3 buzzed like a thumb on a live fence. Cash only, drink by drink, I said. Owner's policy. I gestured at the dead credit card machine as if that backed God. Something flickered behind her eyes, irritation, suspicion, calculation. She managed a small smile. Fine, keep the change. She sipped slow, watching. Then she set a photograph on the bar with the care you use for folded flags. A tall man, sandy hair, beard soft with outdoor sun, grinning in front of Canyon Rock. "My husband," she said. "Kevin Lorraine, research trip near here. Missed check-ins 3 days now." I studied the picture, didn't know him, said so. She asked my off nights and nodded like she'd arrange her hunt around them. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said. I cleared her glass before she finished the sentence, Rule 3 moving my hands, washed it immediately. Inside, residue, reddish, thicker than gin's cling, darker than wine, metallic tang like coins held too long. Blood. Next night she came. Harris took the bar, I restocked. Sound carries funny in the keg sitting on old courtroom bones, I heard them clean. "Kevin Lorraine?" she asked. Harris lied smooth. "Yeah, in here last week. Talked mines. Staying up near Fallen Horse Creek." We had not seen a sandy-haired geologist. We know every face by stool groove if not by name. Harris was protecting something, or warning it. Tracy kept coming every night for a week. Same drink, same cash. Big tips that read like bribes to luck. I collected her glasses fast as laying a tourniquet. Each held that faint red curve drying on the rim. The seventh night there was more than a curve. Something clicked and rattled in the drain screen. I fished it out with a bar rag, a human molar, root still wet. I tongued my own mouth in animal panic. All teeth accounted for. No ache. No socket. Why did that tooth look exactly like mine? The storm that night wasn't the loudest thing in the bar. It was the quiet between raindrops when you hear yourself thinking the wrong questions. Tracy watched me watch the glassware and laughed softly like a teacher catching a cheat. "Any luck?" I asked, because the human urge to press a bruise is undefeated. "Oh," she said, voice cordial, eyes flincing. "I found what I was looking for." Umbrella bobbed out into rain. 3 days later, a body turned up near Fallen Horse Creek. Torture. Hands removed. Teeth extracted while alive. Identified as Dr. Lawrence Keller, Colorado geologist. Nothing about Kevin Lorraine. I showed Harris the blurb. He nodded like a man buying more time on a bill. "Keller was using Kevin's research," he said. "Kevin's 12 years dead. She isn't looking for her husband." "What is she?" I asked. "Something that follows traces," Harris said, "and leaves ledgers." A week later, a clean-shaved man in Salt Lake Concourse shoes ordered a Hendrix the same way, with the same exact cadence. When he left, I found a motel receipt folded under his coaster, room number in the same slanted hand I'd seen on that photograph's back. That night the bar ledger from the 80s surfaced from a padlocked crate, and across one page Harris had written in red, "Tracy Lorraine paid in full." Paid what? To whom? With what? I didn't sleep, not because I was scared. Because my back molar ached in a way that sounded like a pen scratching my name. Rule 4. If the wall phone rings, answer. All Souls 5 minutes. Hang up immediately if they ask about the lost child. The avocado green rotary hangs near the restrooms, cord cracked, receiver yellowed. The keg hasn't paid for that copper in decades. We run 2 handhelds and a landline that grudges long distance. The wall phone still rings. 3 months into the job, a Tuesday lull, 2 old men playing checkers with bottle caps, me stacking clean pints. That shrill bell cut the room like a blade. Not a cell, not our line, the rotary. Harris came out of the back, walked to it like a man approaching a sleeping dog, lifted the receiver and said, calm as weather, "All Souls 5 minutes." He listened, nodded once, hung up. "Wrong number," he said, and went back to counting rye. A month later, mid-afternoon gap between lunch and whoever we are at night, the phone rang again. My turn. Receiver cool against my ear. "All Souls 5 minutes." Silence that sounded like rushing water in a culvert. Then a voice, neither young nor old, male nor female, a shape of a voice like a hand under a bedsheet. Is this about the lost child? Cold chased my spine like a habit coming home. I dropped the receiver. It rang again immediately. I let it. When Harris came on, I told him. He looked relieved and older. "You did right," he said. "If they ask about the lost child, you hang up." "Who's they?" He rearranged bottles that didn't need rearranging. Old system, before cell phones. Code from back when folks had reason to call fast. But his voice had tremor in the gravel. The worst night came with a blizzard that shut the county like a door. Generator humming, the kegs windows wearing snow masks. A family stumbled in. Mom, Dad, boy 10 and girl 8. They wrapped around our ancient space heater, thawing grief out of their hands. The kids played checkers with our bottle caps, red vs. green, the way war gets played when you're 8. The wall phone rang. "All Souls 5 minutes," I said, the phrase already carved in the back of my teeth. The line hissed, then spoke clear as silver. "We found the lost child. She's with us now." Before I could hang up, the little girl, Emma, stood, head cocked like catching a far sound. "They're calling for me," she said in a flat voice that made my fingers go numb. "Sweetheart," her dad said, calm, you could see the seams on. "Nobody's calling you." She walked toward the phone, no hurry, no drama, like someone returning a borrowed book. When he tried to hold her, she clawed his cheek deep enough to draw blood. Harris appeared with a small tin I'd never clocked. He pressed a lump of rock salt into her palm and folded her fingers around it. She went limp, eyes rolling back, then blinked like waking from a nap. "Why's everybody looking at me?" she asked, voice hers again. Her mother cried the way only math can make you cry, that fast tally of what almost happened. After they left at first plow light, Harris told me the rest. Early 1900s, a child went missing in a winter that wouldn't stop taking. The county searched until boots bled. Finally, the parents went to a woman in the hills. Special abilities, folks said. She set treated phones across distances nobody owns, a party line without an operator. Calls started with All Souls for protection. 5 minutes was the promise. How long until help reached you? They never found the child, but the line never went quiet. "The lost child isn't one child anymore," Harris said. "It's any child who will answer." That night, long after close, I lifted the receiver just to prove it was only plastic. Cold leached into my palm. Under the honest silence, faint as after echo, I thought I heard a whisper use my full name. The one the mirror had tried on earlier, the one I buried when I changed counties. I set the receiver down real gentle, like not waking a baby you're not sure is yours. Mirrors lie. Everyone knows that on some level, you never look exactly the same in glass as you do in photos. But after 10 years at the keg, I stopped thinking of mirrors as decoration. I started thinking of them as doors. Rule 5. If a customer's reflection behaves differently than the customer, act normal. Place a salt shaker upside down on the table. Then wait for Dev, Harris, or the sheriff. It was a Sunday, sky bruise purple fading to black. The jukebox had given up. Rig hands played 9-ball in back. A man I'd never seen took the third stool from the end. Average hair, average build, forgettable face. He said his name was Clayton, unprompted. That was my first warning. Most strangers hear no better than to announce themselves. He ordered a beer, mispronouncing it like a man who'd rehearsed off a menu card. Harmless enough. Until I glanced at the mirror. The real Clayton was studying peanuts, counting shells like an auditor. The reflected Clayton was watching me, eyes locked, cold and certain, like I'd stolen something he wanted back. My fingers brushed the nearest salt shaker. The urge to flip it came fast, almost instinct. I forced myself to act like nothing was wrong, polished another glass, moved on. Back at the mirror, the reflection was worse. His real mouth stayed shut, but in the silver his lips moved. Not prayer, not song, the shape of names. The old couple in the corner booth shifted uneasily. They rubbed their necks as if breath brushed too close. That was enough. I grabbed the shaker, slid it under a bar rag, and drifted to their table like I was wiping crumbs. "Lucky charm," I said, flipping it upside down. The lid gave a soft metallic click. The mirror lagged. Clayton's reflection blinked a beat too late. The real Clayton scrolled his phone. The reflection grinned wider, teeth like zipper teeth pulled too far. I texted Dev one line, Rule 5. Sheriff Morrison walked in 10 minutes later, no badge, just a flannel shirt, boots tracking gravel. He didn't look at Clayton, didn't look at me, sat 2 stools away and ordered a beer. He raised it, took a sip, set it down. His eyes finally found the mirror. His jaw clenched, then eased. "Evenin'," he said softly to Clayton, as though addressing a wasp hovering near his ear. "Evening," Clayton said, voice steady, mouth wrong. "What kind of work?" Morrison asked. "Collection," Clayton replied. His reflection didn't stop smiling when he finished the word. The teeth stretched too wide, too long. The sheriff set his bottle down slow. "Don't much care for collectors here." Clayton left a 20 he didn't owe, slid off his stool, and walked out into the night. The mirror version stayed. It turned to face me directly and opened its mouth in a scream so silent it hurt my ears. Then both were gone. Sheriff tapped the shaker. "Good thinking," he said. "They need the copy before they can take the keys." "Keys to what?" I asked. "Your life," he said, "or the count stops mattering at all." That night when I closed up, the mirror fogged with a handprint on the inside. Not pressed outward, begging release. Pressed inward. About to knock. Rule 1 again. No one sits the corner booth after 10 p.m. on Thursdays. Most folks think rules are boundaries. Harris says they are debts. Debts that keep getting collected week after week. It was late summer, heat shimmering off the gravel. A bluegrass trio rolled in, upright bass, fiddle, guitar plastered in stickers. They were in between gigs looking for a place to tune up. Every table was full except the corner booth. "That one's off limits," I said. "Best acoustics in the corner," the fiddle player said with a grin. "It's not about acoustics." He shrugged. By 9:45 they were tuning anyway. At 10 sharp they started playing a murder ballad. The names in the song made me freeze. 7 men hanged in Sweetwater County a century ago. Harris had muttered those names once, drunk, when he thought I wasn't listening. Nobody outside county lore should have known them. The booth groaned. Vinyl sank like invisible shoulders pressing down. Frost spread across the tabletop. The fiddle melted resin, black streaks down its body. The bass rattled like a gallows beam. Patrons stopped talking. A teacher whispered, "That's not just music." I grabbed the salt tin. Harris came running, face white, and scattered a whole shaker across the booth. The music strangled mid-note. The trio lurched back, instruments shrieking. The booth exhaled smoke that smelled of rope and charred wood. The fiddle's bow case hit the floor. A raw burn mark scarred the handle like a rope had cut it. The trio left their tips, left everything, just walked out pale like men who'd nearly been added to a ledger. Harris poured rye with shaking hands. "Debt collects interest," he muttered. "And we're late paying." When I wiped the booth the next morning, new initials carved themselves into the grain. Not English, not anything I could read. Just 7 marks, lined like a restarted ledger. Rule 2 again, twisted. Sometimes gold isn't in mouths. Sometimes it's nailed right into the floor. Kid couldn't have been more than 16, wiry. Carried a Folgers scrawled with Sharpie, square nails, keg. He thunked it on the bar, grinning. Found these under the crawl space. The smell hit before the sight. Wet metal, ozone, that tang like the second before lightning. Inside, blackened square-cut nails. Rusted, bent, tips corroded. But the longer I looked, the less they looked pulled from wood, more like pulled from flesh. Harris went still mid-pour. Whiskey overflowed the glass. He didn't even curse. "Get that can out of here," he said. The kid shook it. The nails rattled tight like a mouthful of teeth. That night after close, Harris and I opened the trapdoor near the mop sink. Crawl space smelled of dirt and mouse droppings and something older. Stone. Water. Deeper than it should have been. One spot in the soil rang hollow when I knocked it with my boot, like a drum. "Don't dig," Harris muttered, sprinkling salt in a ring around it, "unless you want it digging back." 2 nights later, quiet bar, jukebox silent. From the floor, tap, 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 not settling, a measured strike. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats. Then one final slam. Dust sifted down from the beams, coating the bottles. Next day, Vaughn sat at his stool, downed whiskey in one swallow. "They found a seam," he said. "What seam?" "Glass seam. Nails from it don't like being pulled. They want to be driven again." He drummed the bar, 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, the same rhythm I'd heard. That night the Folgers Ken was back on the bar. No kid, no prints in dust. Just the can. One nail floated free point down and drove itself halfway into oak, still warm to the touch. At first I thought Rule 3 was about Tracy alone, but it wasn't about her. It was about her ledger. Autumn night, stars sharp as glass. A stranger walked in, pressed shirt, polished shoes, gelled hair. He ordered gin and tonic, Hendrix if you've got it. Exact cadence, exact words, like a recording of Tracy. I cleared his glass fast. On the rim shimmered a faint red mark. Tilted, and the mark resolved into a sigil, nested circles with slanted strokes. Later, Dev dragged me to the back. We broke Harris's padlock on an old crate. Inside, a ledger book from the 80s. Pages of names, debts, drink tallies. On one, written in Harris's hand and bleeding red, Tracy Lorraine paid in full. A week later, another proxy arrived. Woman in business dress, laptop bag, same order, same cadence. When she left, I found a motel receipt under her coaster. Room number scrawled in that same sharp slanted script. Tracy didn't need to walk in anymore. She had agents. That night I pulled a molar out of the drain trap. Bloody root still wet. It looked exactly like mine. "What ledger is this?" I demanded. Harris poured rye without looking at me. "Blood debt. Once she writes you down, every glass carries the ink." "What's the payment?" He didn't answer. I dreamed of sitting in the corner booth with a book open in front of me. My name scratched across every page, each line darker, wetter, until drops bled onto my hands. I woke with my molar aching. Next evening, before I'd even unlocked, I found a paper on the bar. Written in crimson ink. "Ledger balance due. Phones aren't supposed to work without wires." Sweetwater County didn't get that memo. Rule 4. If the wall phone rings, answer All Souls 5 minutes. Hang up immediately if the caller asks about the lost child. Tuesday shoulder season. Dust in the air like sifted flour. Ozone left over from a storm that changed its mind and went north. 3 people at the bar. A lineman nursing a boilermaker. A mom with a baby asleep on her shoulder. A trucker peeling the label off a long neck into neat confetti. It was the kind of quiet that makes you think you can hear your own heartbeat. Then 3 phones rang at once. Not just the avocado green rotary by the restrooms. The dead line in the back hall storage sang too. And outside, the gutted payphone shell by the ice machine gave voice like a brass wasp. All three in sync, the cadence of a metronome that thinks it's a warning siren. The sound crawled up my molars. I answered the rotary with the phrase, "All Souls 5 minutes." Silence. Then the rush of water in a culvert after spring runoff. The line didn't hang up. It answered itself from the back hall, muffled but unmistakable. "All Souls 5 minutes," a second voice said. It was my voice. A perfect, taped-over copy with the treble turned wrong. Dev swore. The mom clutched the baby closer. The trucker stood like a man who suddenly remembered he'd left his own front door unlocked. All three phones rang again, cascading, overlapping like a choir that didn't agree on one song. I slammed down the receiver. The ringing didn't care. It layered on itself until the whole bar felt off-level, like we were tipping towards some drain in the floor. Then one voice shouldered through the others, gentle, coaxing. "We found the lost child," it said. "She wants to come home." The baby stirred, eyelids fluttered. The trucker's reflection in the bar mirror mouthed the words before he did, like the glass had a head start. The mom whispered, "No," without breath. I flipped every salt shaker I could reach. The sheriff came in mid-rattle, already pulling a length of twine from his pocket and tying it in a sailor's stopper, not as if that mattered for phones. "Give me the back line," he said. I heard him answer with the phrase, then hang up hard. Outside, Vaughn yanked the payphone's cold receiver, pressed rock salt into its cradle like he was packing a muzzle loader. One by one, the rings staggered. The last tone cut off mid-bell, the way a breath stops when someone clamps a hand over a mouth. The baby slept again. The trucker sank onto his stool, fingers trembling as if he just held a live wire. The mom mouthed "thank you" with eyes glassed in relief and something like fury. Salt dusted the air and fell like snow. For a moment I could swear each grain hung longer than gravity allows, suspended in some shared dial tone only it could hear. That night, when the doors were locked and the neon went quiet, I checked the mirror out of reflex. At the far right edge where the silver is foxed to darkness, a small damp footprint pressed itself into the clouded backing. Toes turned inward like someone had been standing inside the glass. The shape faded slowly, too slowly. You don't forget the way it takes its time. We told ourselves we'd won the round. You have to tell yourself that to keep pouring. When I killed the lights, the outside payphone's severed receiver swung on its frayed cord. Back, forth, no wind. The next afternoon a note waited under the bar rail. No footsteps in the flour dust we'd missed under the stools. Just a note written in an old-fashioned hand, party line extended, new subscribers pending. The sheriff read it jaw tight. "They're building out," he said. "To where?" He didn't answer. He put the note in his pocket like it weighed more than paper. Reflections lag. We'd learned to live with that. But that night the mirror didn't lag. It multiplied. A heat storm rolled in mean and dry, thunder with no rain, like the sky wanted to say something but didn't dare spit it. The county went dark, the keg humming on generator, candles tugging shadows tall. When the power came back, neon flickered alive in fits, jukebox hiccuped, compressor sighed like a smoker. The mirror behind the bar lit up with it, every bulb and beer logo doubled in the silver. 9 bodies in the room. I counted them twice, the way you count chips when the game turns expensive. 9, but the mirror swore there were 10. Dev saw it the same second I did. He didn't look directly, just let his eyes skate like a stone across a lake. "We're +1," he said. The extra wasn't a shape yet, just a density, static in a man shape there and not, moving a fraction late from any real person it might have been shadowing. Then it chose a hat, a trucker cap no one wore, and sharpened like bad Polaroid chemistry, finally picking an image. The sheriff was already here. I hadn't seen him come in. He put down his coffee like a man setting a chess piece he knew would be taken in 2 moves. He started flipping salt shakers in a quiet procession along the rail. Reflections jerked, staggered. One woman's reflection blinked 3 seconds after her, eyes late to sorrow. A rancher's reflection smiled while the real rancher rubbed his temples like a migraine was pulling nails from behind his eyes. The kid at the pool table, bless him, chalked his cue in glass while in the world he'd already laid it down. I nodded him toward the door. He obeyed like he'd been raised right. The extra opened its mouth in the mirror, not out loud. In there, it formed syllables I didn't want and didn't get until it hit my old name, the one I'd buried in another county. You can feel a name in your teeth when a mirror mouth speaks it. It vibrates bone. I tasted copper. The generator hiccuped. Every reflection flashed blank, came back wrong, then fought itself into place. Vaughn, who can drop into a room like a shadow already there, traced the silver rot with one clean thumb, stopping before he touched the black. Seams are thinning. He said, "You'll see multiples now." Multiples of what? I asked, not taking my eyes off the extra. Attempts, he said. They rehearse you until the count stops mattering. Rehearse me how? He nodded at the silver. By practicing your edges. I told myself I didn't understand. It's safer to be ignorant until ignorance becomes a hole in the boat. We salted the rail end to end. The extra blur stepped back, then forward again, testing. The sheriff slid his coffee nearer the register, clearing space the way lawmen do when they expect kinetic trouble. Harris came up from the back with the painter's tin of rock salt and set it dead center like an altar. The neon steadied. The extra flattened, sulked, split into 2 for a heartbeat and was gone, like it had realized it was early to a shift it intended to work anyway. We cleared the room. Electrical, I lied, comping tabs like the keg was a church and I was the treasurer. Closing alone, I checked the mirror because you do. Every reflection matched, except mine. Mine lagged half a heartbeat, enough to make my stomach drop. I raised my hand. In the glass, my hand followed late. I smiled. The reflection caught up, smiled a little too long before stopping. I flipped a shaker upside down and watched myself snap into time like a train finding its track. It held. For now. I killed the lights and listened. Dry thunder yawned over the desert. Somewhere under the floor, the seam answered with a slow, deliberate thud. Debt doesn't need a calendar, but it keeps one. Thursday in late October, the kind of cold that argues with your bones. Blaze orange jackets on chair backs, hunters bragging soft about tracks like they were telling fishing stories to the wind. At 9:55, the kitchen service bell rang itself. One bright ding, another. Then an even cadence, 10 total, the way a man signals the end of supper before he puts on his robe and calls court. Harris didn't move for a breath, then he did fast. "It's starting early," he said, voice wet with old smoke. No one sat the corner booth, we'd made sure. But the vinyl sagged anyway, 7 depressions, deliberate as handprints in concrete. Frost skinned the table. At the edge, letters carved themselves on the lacquer with a soft, queasy squeal. Not initials this time. Words. Do, collect. The hunters fell quiet. The youngest laughed to survive his fear. He swaggered toward the booth with the kind of bravado that goes hard and brittle. "Reserved my ass," he said, palm slapping frost. The bell chimed once. His body stiffened as if air hardened around him. When he spoke, it wasn't his voice. Cattle rustling, he said in a clipped 19th century cadence. Sentence, death. Men who have handled rifles all their lives reached for nothing at their belts like boys. Boots froze mid-stride. The hymn under the air came up, the slow, sour tune men hum when they've already seen the rope. Neon outside flickered, failed, flickered. In the mirror I saw him. Black robe, fork beard, high white collar that made his neck look longer as if length could be duty. Judge Fleming eating his last bite as though it were a ritual, knife scraping china. He raised his head and every reflection turned to look with him. Not the bodies, only the copies. Harris dumped a shaker onto the booth in a hiss that smelled like sea on a prairie. The sheriff burst through the door, not caring who saw his gun. He slammed the buttstock on the floor. Vaughn was right behind him, carrying a gavel charred black the way wood looks after a fire that went too long. The hymn faltered. The frost cracked like lake ice in spring. Vaughn pounded the bar with the gavel. Whump, whump, whump. The exact 10 count in reverse. The judge's reflection looked at the gavel like a man who recognizes his own name on a stone. Not this Thursday, the sheriff said, voice loud the way a prayer is loud when it needs to beat a song. Not this docket. The youngest hunter sagged. The room exhaled. Men cried into their collars and didn't notice. He was different, though, the mouthy one. When his eyes found mine, they were not his eyes. Sentence deferred, he said in the judge's voice. Debt continues. He walked out into the night and never looked back. We didn't call after him. You don't invite a sentence to reconsider. After close, the kitchen bell sat on the corner booth table. Warm handle, grease slick, the kind of warmth that isn't from hands but from mouth. On the booth edge, burned into varnish, a circle with a tail, a noose sketched quick by a hot finger. It overlapped last week's mark like a man signing twice. In the glass, the old bar mirror with its blackened corners, the noose line showed double. I couldn't shake the wrongness of thinking the reflection had been there first, and the burn on the table was the copy. Rules are instructions, dockets are records. The first can save you. The second only watches you drown. First snow that stuck, the roof leaked over the mop sink. Dev and I dropped into the crawlspace to check pipes. It was colder down there than above, the kind of cold that belongs to river stone, not desert dirt. The flashlight found a wooden chest half sunk in soil, iron hardware black as old blood, square nails that had learned patience. The lid bore a scorched seal, scales of justice split down the beam. Inside, a docket book, half charred, half preserved like the fire made choices. Names written in ink too dark to be mere pigment. Thursdays for every date. Sentences like a drumbeat, death, death, death. The last half page was blank. Waiting. We set it on the bar. Harris cursed softly like a man trying not to wake a sleeping dog. Vaughn arrived without a call, the way men arrive when they've been listening for a noise. The sheriff stood wide, hands empty, as if holding invisible reins. The blank page bled ink. I watched my name appear in a hand I knew from no human hand. Dev's followed, Harris's, Morrison's, Vaughn's. 7 names by the time the page stopped breathing. The wall phone rang. All Souls 5 minutes, I said, and heard more confidence than I felt. Judge Fleming's cadence came back, crisp as a gavel on walnut. Count docket, read charges. The book flipped itself, pages riffled by no draft. On the corner booth, new letters carved into frost with a skepticism that bordered on hunger. In the mirror, our reflections mouthed words none of us spoke. Rustling, sentence, death. Perjury, sentence, death. Unpaid debt. A pause long enough to set your jaw. Sentence, death. As each charge hit, the matching name on the page pulsed wet, letters swelling like sores. Dev's nose bled on the wood in a red that looked black under neon. The sheriff swayed as if a body blow had arrived late. Vaughn slammed the burned gavel on the bar. Salt leapt like fleas. "Not this week," he said. "This docket is misfiled." Misfiled, I repeated like a talisman that might double as a joke. Frost climbed bottlenecks and webbed taps. Harris splashed whiskey in a ring on the floor and lit it. Fire licked the salt circle, heat beating up. Him choking back like smoke caught wrong. The ink on the page paused, as if considering its options. When the flame died, the book sat shut, stubborn and prim. But we'd all seen the inside, and there are images you can't blink away. 7 names, ours not sentenced, filed. The sheriff holstered a gun he hadn't drawn. Vaughn breathed in a kind of measured count that made me think of the 10 rings and the reverse. Harris wiped the bar at a place where it was already clean. "We bought time," he said, "nothing else." I put the book back in the chest. The hinges groaned like a man's last word. We lowered it to the crawl space where cold lives. Dirt took it like a mercy. Above in the mirror, my reflection wrote something on an invisible page I couldn't see. When I got home, my hands smelled like old ink. It didn't wash off. Rule 2 was always about the gold teeth. Vaughn's warning. But the night we pried up boards, I learned the teeth were just surface symptoms. The seam lay under the mop sink where dust and bleach never settled right. A hollow in the earth, dirt like old coffee grounds. We thought maybe broken pipe, maybe animal den, so we pried. Underneath, not soil, not stone. A sheet of fused glass, black and webbed with cracks. It pulsed faintly, like embers cooling and reigniting. When I brushed dust away, my face stared back, smiling when I wasn't. Dev gagged, whispered, "It's a mirror in the dirt." Vaughn arrived before we called him. He crouched, lantern glow sinking into the glass. Atlantic City miners thought they found obsidian. They were wrong. This is courthouse sand fused in the fire. Memory vein, collectors breed in seams like these. As if on cue, the glass thudded, not echo, not quake. Intentional. Ding, 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 like a gavel striking. The coffee can of nails appeared on the bar that night without prints. Lid rattling. One nail floated up, point first, and drove itself into wood without hammer or hand. The seam below answered with a crack that glowed orange at the edges. Later, when neon died, faces pressed against the glass from underneath. Hollow eyes, dirt-packed mouths, miners. The 7 hanged, or us, rehearsed ahead of schedule. One face was mine again, grinning wrong, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Salt line hissed when we drew it. The seam dulled, but cracks spread farther, lightning branching out of sight. The mirror behind the bar went dark. No reflections at all. Chrome taps showed nothing. Windows blank. The seam below had stolen every surface. "Not a vein anymore," Vaughn said flat. "A river." 2 rules met that night. Tracy's tab and the judge's booth. Ledger and docket balanced themselves. Thursday wind blew grit like needles. By 9:55 the corner booth sagged under invisible weight. Frost carved itself into words: due, collect. The register drawer held a slip of paper I hadn't placed. Written in red ink, sharp hand, ledger balance past due. Names listed. Ours, same as the docket. At 10 sharp, 3 strangers walked in. City shoes, ironed clothes, wrong accents. Each ordered gin and tonic, cadence too familiar, Tracy's proxies. When I cleared their glasses, red residue-smeared napkins, blood that wasn't theirs. The ledger page in the docket book filled itself, names stacking under ours. Additions in a column, debits, credits. The wall phone rang. I answered. All Souls, 5 minutes. This time no hiss, no child's voice. Judge Fleming's cadence, ledger and docket reconciled. Payment due. The booth groaned. Rope creaked. Frost climbed walls. Vaughn slammed the burned gavel. Ledger isn't closed till both sides sign. He cut his palm, smeared blood across the docket. The sheriff followed, setting down a bullet casing packed with salt. Even Harris poured whiskey in a circle. Ink quivered, lines wavered. When I looked again, my name was gone, but Dev's wasn't. It had doubled, 2 entries, twice the debt. Blood ran from his nose. His voice cracked. It's charging me twice. It's... The booth shuddered. Frost hissed. Then silence. Ledger satisfied. Dev collapsed against the bar, eyes wide, his name still glowing, twice. The proxies left without speaking. Tracy's handwriting lingered on a slip of paper, red ink wet, ledger balance transferred. Below it, only one name, Dev's. He never came back. Rules aren't just survival tips, they're inheritance. After Dev vanished, Harris made me write. Yellow pads stacked, my hand cramping as if carving into the wood beneath. Rule 1 through 5. Notes on Tracy, the judge, collectors, the seam. Not for you, Harris said. For the next bartender dumb enough to take the job. The week passed strain. Frost melted early. The wall phone rang less, voices tired. The mirror fogged over as if embarrassed. It felt like the storm had finally gone, but Vaughn shook his head. Not gone, shifted. That Thursday he brought a lantern older than the county. Said 3 Civil War souls lingered at the threshold, fed by the docket, but somehow our meddling loosened them. The lantern flared without flame. 3 soldiers appeared, uniforms rotted but eyes clear. They stepped into the snow outside and were gone, freed. Relief lasted minutes. Then the phone rang. All Souls, 5 minutes. The voice wasn't tired anymore. It was Judge Fleming's crisp tone. An 8th gate has opened under Lake Superior. We froze. Harris muttered. We didn't end it, we exported it. The judge's ledger, Tracy's signatures, the mirror vein, they weren't local. They were national, maybe global. That night I closed alone. My yellow pad lay open. Last page wasn't my hand. Sharp red ink had written itself. Rule 6, do not answer the call from the water. You don't defeat wrath, you bind it with watchfulness. Now I sit at the keg alone. Harris is gone, Vaughn too. Sheriff checks in less each week. The bar feels like a waiting room, but the rules remain written in my pad, folded in my wallet. They keep the line alive. Tonight no frost, no phone, no nails. Just a father and daughter's shadow across the booth playing chess with bottle caps. She laughs when she wins. He smiles like a man grateful for the game. The mirror shows it too. Nothing extra, no lag, just them. I think maybe the rules weren't about wrath at all. Maybe they were about love, fathers holding daughters, hunters praying together, Harris pouring whiskey for the dead. That's what bound the seam longer than salt or fire. The neon hums steady. The jukebox clicks but doesn't play. For once, silence is enough. When the lights go out for good, the corner keg won't need rules anymore, because we kept the night.